Hi everyone, and welcome to Introduction to Policy Analysis. This video is now part 3 of the 5-video series based on Gilbert and Terrell's dimensions of social welfare policy and their framework. The previous video covered the basis of social allocations, and now we're moving on to the second dimension of choice, which involves the nature of social provisions. This is basically about what benefits or services are being provided. There are two general categories when it comes to what types of benefits the beneficiaries can receive. The first involves cash, and the second involves different types of in-kind benefits. What do we mean by in-kind, you may ask? Well, I happen to have the answer right here. It is something similar, such as goods or services or other commodities, as opposed to actual cash money. Both of these, however, involve the question of transferability, which is the extent to which the benefit allows for consumer choice or consumer sovereignty, if you will, what we would call the client's right to self-determination. So I'm going to go over cash and all the different types of in-kind benefits. And when I do that, we'll go over values as well as this idea of how transferable the benefits are. Okay, so cash. This one's fairly straightforward. It can be a check or direct deposit, but it's actual cash money. Proponents of giving cash argue that cash provisions are optimal because it gives beneficiaries the maximum choice. So in that case, the value is freedom of choice versus social control. When it comes to the client's right to self-determination, here it's about the right to use resources for whatever material or psychological benefit the person sees fit. According to Gilbert and Terrell, and not just what they see fit now, but what they see fit for their future. Opponents, however, argue that this assumes the consumer is rational and can make choices regarding what is in their best interest, and that it is not always the case. I will leave that to you to make your own judgment on. But in terms of transferability, cash has the maximum transferability possible. It allows for maximum choice. A person can use cash for whatever purpose they see fit. So that's cash. Everything else I'm about to go over falls under the general category of in-kind. The first kind of in-kind I will go over involves vouchers. Vouchers have what's called a structured exchange value. That means that the piece of paper or what have you that it is the voucher itself can be exchanged for whatever value is written on that piece of paper, but it has to be exchanged within a structure provided by the entity giving the voucher, which means that it can only be used for specific purposes. And generally speaking, they are used for purchasing specific goods or resources. For example, bus vouchers or childcare vouchers. They allow for some freedom of choice. For example, the person can decide on a specific bus or a specific daycare that they're interested in, but there is still social control over how the benefit is used in that it cannot be used for other goods or services. So for example, in other words, a bus voucher cannot be used to purchase food or childcare or what have you. Another in-kind involves subsidies. This is actually not in the Gilbert and Terrell book, but it still applies. This involves government payments to a third party directly. So this could involve healthcare, for example, or loans, like subsidized loans. But the idea here is that there is social control involved as government is making a direct payment, but there are some limited choices as far as vouchers. So, for example, with loans, The person can decide which bank or loan agency to go to, but there's still social control because the payment is going directly to that entity. Next, we have goods. These are concrete commodities. For example, things like food, clothing, housing. Goods have limited transferability in that they are usually, like if they are going to be exchanged, those exchanges are confined to marginal channels such as pawn shops, flea markets, informal barter, etc. So the value here is definitely more on the social control side than the freedom of choice side. But folks have found a way to maybe have a little bit more choice in exchanging what they're receiving for what they want or need. Okay, services. These are activities performed on the client's behalf, such as in-home care, personal counseling, case management, job training, all the stuff that we as social workers do. And one key piece of it is that there is some sort of professional expertise involved in terms of defining services. Maybe not professional, but expertise. Okay. These provisions are non-transferable in terms of their immediate market value to the recipient. What are you going to exchange services for example? In terms of the values underlying giving these types of benefits, that's debatable. So they are non-transferable because they limit a person's choices. But by providing services, one goal is to help empower clients. So if we think back to Wakefield's ideas about psychological justice, I don't know. I feel like I'm reaching there. I don't know. Maybe it's just my bias for services, but we'll talk about this in class. It's a debate. Okay, opportunities are another form of in-kind benefit, and this involves the provision of some sort of civil right or an extra chance based on compensation. So this benefit ties directly to the eligibility criteria we went over in terms of compensation in the previous video, which is basically what this is saying, direct connection, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So, for example, these are additional points that are given to veterans on civil service exams or special efforts of universities to recruit underrepresented students, etc. There is a value of social control in the sense that opportunities are not transferable, but there is also a value in terms of valuing equity in this case. So. Okay, power. This is the benefit to influence or to have power over, and not power over other people, but power over what one is going to receive. So it's the control of goods and resources and how other policies are made. For example, some policies specifically say that certain groups of people have to have a voice on some sort of board or what have you, that then decides how funds are used or how other policies are made. So in a sense, power cannot be spent, so it's not transferable, but it does give a degree of choice in terms of provisions. This is called a fluid exchange value, the idea being that one has the power to command social and economic choices that are made. So even though it's not transferable, a person can, in a sense, if they're on some sort of board that's going to determine what services are being received, and then they are making those choices. So there's a choice that comes as a result of having power over. And lastly, we have tax credits. For example, the Earned Income Tax Credit. I put a question mark here only because it's kind of interesting how this can be viewed. Because tax credits, like the EITC, work in two ways. they lower taxes, and or they provide an actual cash refund. So paying less taxes, that's not transferable. But getting a refund is kind of like an indirect cash payment, which then has maximum transferability and freedom of choice. One value underlying such credits is the idea that the working poor are deserving of help. The key here being working poor, or working, I should say. And if we remember back to the Protestant work ethic, etc., etc. Okay. Another consideration is, okay, so values determine who gets the benefits and what they get. But what about what is not provided? In other words, what is missing to meet the goals of a policy? And what are we therefore not valuing? Okay, so what is not provided? Enough social workers ever, enough other providers, enough services, enough jobs and job programs, so definitely not enough structural fixes. Okay, so this was kind of a quick review of the nature of social provisions. We will go over some more examples in class. So this is the end. Well, the end is sort of ahead. There's 2 more videos to watch. So thank you for watching this one, and I will see you in class. Bye.